Alongside Srikar, Rajendran, I'm Ravi Kapur. After Game 1 of the NBA Finals, the Celtics and the Mavericks and the Celtics got off to a great lead in the first quarter, really cruised to a victory, 107-89. Srikar, it wasn't even that close.
No, it really wasn't. And I think this was a game where, the Celtics really felt the momentum. Both of these teams had a long break, okay? There's a lot of time between the conference finals and now Thursday, June 6th, Game 1 of the NBA Finals. And it kind of plays into this whole rest versus rust idea. Who was the more rusty team coming out? I could easily say Dallas. But the Celtics, on the other hand, looked a little bit more rested. Like they looked like they were more prepared. They had a lot more energy. The Mavs had a little bit more energy in the third quarter. But again, as soon as the Mavs responded, the Celtics were Johnny on the spot and they got right back in the game. So every time the Mavs would make it close, the Celtics took that as, hey, okay, this is our time. Now we play this like we're down. So they just immediately go on a big run. And in a game, that is pretty much predicated on momentum swings, the Celtics had momentum for essentially all but, maybe half a quarter.
The Celtics were paced by Jaylen Brown, who had 22, but the reemergence of Kristaps Porzingis was probably the difference in the game. He had 20 points, looked great, and let's face it, that's why they picked him up. That's why they made the blockbuster trade. In years past, we saw the Celtics struggle to get another scorer to bail them out in tough situations, that Porzingis did just that.
Yeah, the Mavericks just had no answer for Kristaps Porzingis, especially early on. He's just such a huge part of this Celtic squad. It almost makes you think about I kind of forgot that they were without Porzingis for this entire playoff run, and once you insert him back into the starting lineup, his impact just showed early on. 11 points, 2 huge blocks in his first 7 minutes of action. I mean, his size and his length, that's posing a lot of problems for Dallas on both sides of the floor. And it should be noted that the Mavericks actually faced 2 really great centers or 2 really great big men in their own right in previous series, with Chet Holmgren in that OKC series, Kat and Rudy Gobert when they faced the Timberwolves. Both of those bigs didn't really perform well. I could attribute that to poor shots and a lack of capitalization on their end on their open shots, or I could attribute it to the Dallas defense, being really good. But with how they performed against Porzingis, I tend to think the former. I tend to think the other bigs just didn't make use of their matchups against this Dallas defense, because the Celtics sure did. I mean, they absolutely overwhelmed the Mavs in the physicality aspect, in the in the energy facet of things. I think this was just straight up domination, and Kristaps Porzingis was kind of that driving force early on to make sure that they were going to get a big lead and to make sure they could hold on to it throughout.
And, a lot of folks made news about Kyrie Irving returning to the Boston Garden. There's a long history there. But the reality is Porzingis played for the Mavericks.
Right. Yeah.
And
that was the underrated revenge aspect that no one was talking about. And he sure looked like he had revenge on his mind. Kyrie, not so much.
So Porzingis was terrific. And then on the other side, Kyrie struggled. Only 12 points. Luka, is always going to play a very solid role. He had 30, but Kyrie struggled. What do you attribute that to? Just game one, a big part of the defensive game plan by the Celtics was to limit Kyrie. What did you see? Why did he struggle tonight?
Well, I can't attribute it to game one if Kyrie's been in situations like this before. I mean, his record in closeout games speaks enough. You'd think game one is a walk in the park for him. But I really attribute it to the Celtics' perimeter defense, especially when Luka Doncic was off the floor. They were really hounding Kyrie on the perimeter, and there is no other player on the Mavericks who's going to be on the floor when Luka's out that can, have that offense to him to say, hey, I can take over a game. I can stop a run. Kyrie is the guy that's supposed to be doing that. And when you take away Kyrie, who's going to step up in that case? Derek Lively is a rookie. He doesn't have the experience in these spots. Great player, great talent, but he's just not the guy that I can look at and be like, okay, he's going to carry the offense. So for the Celtics, it's really smart on the Celtics part. They really just made advantage of the minutes that Luka was off the floor because they knew that they just had to key in on Kyrie. And look, Irving hasn't beaten the Celtics in this past 11 games, right? So there's some bad history there for Kyrie in the first place. So it's just sticking to that formula. What's gone well in the past? You key in on Kyrie, you take him out of the game, no one else is going to step up.
Every member of the Celtics starting five was double figures, and people forget about Drew Holiday, who was another big addition. A tremendous perimeter defense, Jaylen Brown, Derek White, Drew Holiday. That's tough for anybody. And even though you've got two unbelievable offensive players in Kyrie and Luka, the Celtics might be built just perfectly to stop a team like the Mavericks.
Right, and much credit to GM Brad Stevens, who kind of oversees all the front office stuff there. He has built an absolute powerhouse, and it showed. It almost looked like it was two different classes of basketball being played in this one. Like in Boston, I really loved the shot making decisions too. I mean, they made good on every single possession. The starting five that was built there, and also the depth. Derek White was starting this game, but he could come off the bench and be, a six man of the year. Like he is insanely good. And the way they've kind of stacked this roster throughout, it's absolutely overwhelming. Like the Celtics are just that team. I feel like a lot of people may seem to count them out. Oh, they had an easy path to the finals. They faced teams that had, a good bit of injuries. The reality of the situation is this team was already insanely good on paper. They were the favorites going into the playoffs, and they're kind of just showing their mettle right now. And also the experience. When you look at this team has been in the finals before. They played the Warriors back in 2022. Obviously, that series didn't go their way, but it was almost like a baby Celtics. It was almost like a younger version of a team that's now kind of in a better spot to win those tough games. And I think you're seeing it, especially it's just game one, but I think this game showed a lot in how this series could play out.
Oh, they definitely look seasoned. For those folks that are Mavericks fans, they can take note that back in 2022 when the Warriors won that series against the Celtics, they lost game one on their home floor. This time the Mavericks were on the road. Losing game one is not the end of the world. They can come back for game two on Sunday night and see if they can rehash things and square things off with one game apiece. For Srikar, Rajendran, I'm Ravi Kapur. We'll see you after game two.